Hello, and welcome back to the Atlantis channel. I have Alla with me again today. I am so excited. We did an interview last fall, and it was so fun. I'll link to it below. We really got to dive into Alla's personal journey with running and how she came upon and found breathwork. And it was really inspiring. It inspired me so much to get out and run. And so I'm really excited today to take that to like the next level, right? Like we get to build on that inspiration, build on Alla's foundation and her personal stories with running. And then we get to really talk about how breathwork has improved your practice, how breathwork supports performance for runners, and then giving some practical tips, tricks, and ideas to those of you who are interested in running on how you can use breathwork to support your practice. Welcome back, Alla.
Oh, thank you, Dakota. I'm so excited to be back on your channel. I feel honored when you reached
Yeah.
out and asked if we want to chat again. I was very
Mm,
excited to be back and have a conversation with you and your audience about all things running and breathwork and a little more deep dive into that space. So thank you for having
yeah.
me.
Yeah, of course. And interesting fact, you are the second most viewed and watched YouTube video from last fall.
Oh,
Like people
wow.
people love you. People love running, apparently.
That's so cool. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I hope would
Yeah.
not. Oh, and I had no idea how popular that topic could be. And this is
Yeah.
good news.
It's so good news. It's such good news, especially for someone who's building a business with runners, right? And helping them improve
Mhm.
their performance through breath work. So cool. Yeah. So I would love, let's just start off like say that there's somebody who's a runner and they caught this caught their attention, right? What are the
Mhm.
benefits of breath work for runners?
Yeah, that's a very good question. There are a lot of physiological benefits of breath work as well as psychological benefits. So if you think about two different things, if you just remove the psychological part of it, mind-body connection part of it on the side, let's talk first about the physiological benefits of breath work. And they are we are like whenever an athlete comes to me and wants to kind of deep dive into breathing, we first start with sort of observation and assessment of how they are breathing at rest, right? When they sit down and they take a deep breath, what's happening in their body. And everybody can do that in front of the mirror as well. And we are looking into kind of four things there at rest. First of all, whether a person is breathing through the nose or mouth, whether their breathing is fast or slow, whether their breathing is gentle or sort of more forceful and expansive. So nasal, slow, gentle, and expansive. Those are the things where we as breathwork practitioners look into in athletic space, making sure a breath is not shallow and frequent and more deep and slow. So that's kind of the first thing that I look into when I look at the runners or any athletes when they come to me, and making sure the assessment is done. And then from there, we can most likely a lot of people overbreathe, so we breathe too much. Secondly, some of the and the second problems are oftentimes comes from breathing too much into the chest. So there is a thoracic breathing happening, and the diaphragm is not engaged as active as it should be. And I know that we talked about in the past, like in the first video, about diaphragmatic breathing and how that term is not very accurate. Every breathing is diaphragmatic, but how do we engage with diaphragm? Diaphragm is the most important muscle when we breathe, right? It's the muscle fiber contain like has three types, right? And the type one is the type that's endurant. So the diaphragm has the type one muscle. It's very endurant muscle. It can endure a lot. So, and the primary function of diaphragm is to create space. So when we inhale, diaphragm contracts and kind of flattens and creates that space and volume inside our body. that drops the pressure and the heart increases. That creates the inhale. And so if we don't engage our diaphragm and as well, we end up not benefiting from that very strong muscle of diaphragm and creating that very shallow thoracic breathing. And thoracic breathing is very inefficient because it doesn't have the help of the diaphragm as much as it should. And we're looking into the patterns of, what happens if somebody is breathing too much with the chest. And how can we see that when we breathe in, if you put your hands on your ribs and your rib cage, and when you inhale, can you see that those ribs kind of moving laterally, expansive? That's where the expansion comes from. That there is not much of the vertical movement, but more like horizontal movement. And so that's where we can add more space into the rib cage and inhale very deeply. So first we engage the diaphragm, so we see our belly kind of moving to the front. Then our rib cage goes laterally, and then we inhale in the upper airways without our shoulders going like this. So breathing should be deep and invisible almost, apart from those the ribs going a little laterally. So first aspect is, does a runner or a person breathe functionally good, like well? And if not, there is, we start looking into, okay, how do we add more mobility in the rib cage? How can we work with fascia and the rib cage itself and the back to release the muscles. Oftentimes with women, often too, we wear bras that are very, very restrictive in our breathing. Other things like breast augmentation and all the other things can impact the tissue inside our bodies, and that creates a lot of this where our muscles are always tense. So we're going to expand and open up that space. So all that will help with the functional breathing. And so the benefits for runners in the first place would be understanding how is your breathing going today, and then understanding, okay, is there anything we could improve in the breathing at rest, and train first at rest so that we can improve breathing when you just sit down and you breathe. And so the first exercise is bringing awareness to your breath and practicing that deep breath, engaging your diaphragm, expanding laterally, bringing it up, and slowly, nasal, gentle, slow, expansive. That's the abbreviation for sort of functional breathing. And then from there, we start working to slow down the breath. And there is a ton of different exercises how we could look into that. Box breathing is very famous, right? We do 4 by 4 by 4 by 4, inhale on 4, hold on 4, exhale on 4, hold on 4. And then from there, we can expand it, doing on 5 by 5 by 5 by 5, 6 and 7 and 8, and so on. And so that creates a lot of controlled inhale that requires a lot of fine movement, fine control movement, and a lot of fine control exhale movement, which is not easy at all if you never try to control your breathing slowly. So those exercises will help bringing awareness, bringing more control into the inhale and exhale at rest, and start increasing. And that's where we get into your biochemistry. And the biochemistry aspect of breathing is increasing CO2 tolerance and decreasing sensitivity to CO2. So the primary sort of driver for us to breathe faster when we run or doing any physical exercise is to exhale CO2, right? It's not to inhale oxygen, it's to exhale CO2, because CO2 is a dilator for your vessels, for your blood. So the more CO2 you have inside your body, the better oxygen gets delivered to your muscles. It's called Bohr effect. So we want to increase the tolerance to CO2 and decrease the sensitivity to CO2 so that our muscles get more oxygen when we exercise. It feels a little counterintuitive because you think CO2 is a waste gas, and that's how we've been taught, and it is in large amounts. But in the human body, CO2 has a very crucial role in delivering oxygen to our muscles. And so from there, we'll start exercising apnea. So static apnea, where you sit and you hold your breath, and feeling that air hunger. And the first moment you feel air hunger, and that's where you start thinking about, oh, it's not like you need oxygen. It's just that CO2 gets so high that you start freaking out, and your brain is like, oh, I need to breathe. And that's where things become interesting, because that's where you start sort of changing the model of your brain, changing the relationship to that feeling of air hunger, and telling your body it's okay. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. And then eventually you'll get better and better in tolerating CO2 in your body. Then we'll start doing dynamic apnea, where we walk and we hold breath. And those are like more advanced things, and where we want to see taking 80 steps without taking a breath. And that's a lot of steps. Like I'm currently, I don't know, I probably can do 45, 50. And I start like getting out of breath. That's it. Like 80 is where you want to be. And there's a bunch of different other assessments in like we can measure people's CO2 tolerance, like BOLT score, like body oxygen level test. Then there is like exhale max test, where we measure how long can we exhale for. And we're looking into like, you take a deep breath a few times, like for maybe 4, 5, 6 times. And then on the last exhale, you exhale as slow as you can, and you count seconds, how long it takes you to exhale until empty. And measure those things. So those are like all kinds of instruments and tools that we can pretty much semi-objectively track people's progress when they come and we start measuring their CO2 sensitivity and tolerance with things we have at hand without going to the lab. We can do all these things, and then as we start exercising and adding all these new routines, we can then see the progress and measure semi objectively how that BOLT score or exhale max tests, all those things improve. And it's amazing to see how other things improve. And that's where we get to the body and mind connection, how our slow breathing improves our ability to be focused and bringing our attention to a task at hand. And alongside with that, we look into stress levels too, because if a person is very stressed out, their breathing pattern will be very different. So we don't want to start, for example, if someone is, in Dan Siegel's what is it, like a scale of states, right? Where we have a window of tolerance. That's kind of the ideal green state where we can learn. And then we go from there into hyper arousal state, where we like just flight and fight, right? Like crazy. And then hypoarousal state and dissociation, where we have sort of a depressed situation. So depending on where you are in that scale, there are different breathwork patterns and breathwork things that you can do. So we would not prescribe someone who is already hyper aroused Wim Hof, or sort of holotropic or a lot of fast breathing, because they're already in that state. But when somebody is depressed and is dissociating from their body, maybe that's where we wanted to add a little more stress, to a positive stress to the body. So it really depends. And as I said in the previous, like our first conversation, like every single breathing in a human is like a fingerprint. It's so unique to you. And so we do have a lot of like modalities and tools and frameworks to approach different personalize the breath work for each person. And because it's so personal, it has to be very, very we have to look into individual cases, case by case basis, and can't just prescribe like, oh, let's everybody let's go and do holotropic work, breath work, or let's all go and do like a lot of breath holds. You will have to be in that window of tolerance state to be able to have benefits from it. And as a trauma-informed breathwork facilitator, as you are, I finally finished my certification end of December last year already, 2023. We very well know about window of tolerance and how we can do too much too soon, too fast, and re-traumatize someone. So the certification that I've done there with pause breathwork to be a trauma-informed breathwork facilitator, combining with this new certification that I am currently undergoing about breathwork science practitioner with Martin, is super, super helpful because it kind of connects two different not approaches, but two different realms of breathwork. Thinking about breathwork as a tool to heal trauma, and to think about breathwork as athletic performance. And that's where an intersection of those two things is just amazing. And this is such an exciting time for breathwork facilitators now, because there is so much research about it coming out every single day about breathwork and how different breathwork patterns and modalities can help us. And it's so cool because just recently there was a study about how breathwork affects ability to learn, and Martin posts about those articles all the time, and it's like a very nice digested summary of those, like, I don't know, 30 pages long articles that makes us like accessible information easy for us to understand, because breath can become very complex very quickly.
I am like geeking out here. And to think about somebody, a runner who's watching this, especially maybe someone who's far in their running journey, but maybe hasn't brought breathwork into their practice. What I think is so fascinating about this conversation is there's so much, right? There's so much. And I think it can be easy to quickly become overwhelmed. But I love specifically how you talk about it, Alla, is you really bring that attention and awareness to the reality that it starts with just breath awareness. Like, you don't just dive into, all right, we're going to run today and this is how we're going to breathe, which as a cross country runner in high school, I've had that before, right? It's like, oh, you're dealing with that. Okay, just do this kind of breathing while you're running. And I was like, I can't, like, I felt like I was suffocating, right? And so I love that you bring the attention to this doesn't start out on the track. It doesn't start on the track. And I would even go as far as to say is like, if you're trying to just manipulate your breath while you're running, you're gonna have a very difficult time because breathing happens all of the time. Right? And specifically talking to your diaphragm as being an endurance muscle, of course, it's literally going 100% of our life. And so bringing just that, like that first small and simple step to your bedroom, to your office, to a meditation pillow where you're just like, okay, I'm going to sit here and look at those first four components, like that nasal, gentle, slow, expansive. I'm looking to build those four pieces slowly and gently with a lot of compassion for myself, is like, what is present? And then taking it slow and then building upon that with all of this amazing and expansive research out there that is being done with breath work. But yeah, I appreciate you for really highlighting that and helping your clients with that in their own journey. Is that this is a life tool that is amazing for running, but it's a life tool.
Yeah, it is. And you're rightfully saying that it starts way before you actually start running. It's like, when a child learns to walk, right? They start first crawling. So this is the same with breathing, creating that interoceptive awareness. And that, for people who don't know, interoception is internal awareness of sensations in your body. And that is something that our society struggles so much these days. And I myself struggled my entire life without even knowing that I'm struggling, connecting to my body. And creating that connection to the body with breath as the bridge between body and mind. It's we do that work, we do that exercise at rest first, right? We lie down and we do sort of a protocol, like NSDR protocol, like a yoga nidra, or just breathing, and NSDR meaning non-sleep deep rest. So sort of meditative breath work where you lie down and you start bringing attention to different parts of your body. You start sensing your heart rate. And it's funny to see that sometimes you can't even sense your heart rate. There, like, everybody has different levels of awareness, internal awareness, and sometimes you can't even sense your heart rate. And that's an assessment that I do with my clients too, is can you sense your heart rate? And can we see what's your sensory awareness outputting for the heart rate? Like, do you measure 55? And then we measure objectively how much that actually is. And if the percentage kind of differentiates from what actually there it is, we can see like, hey, look, your sensory body awareness is about 80% or 70% or maybe 40%. So then we're looking at 70%, up 70% and higher. So if it's below 70%, that's where we start working. We start sitting down, having protocols, doing a lot of breathing and bringing awareness to different parts of your body first. And can we sense that? Can we bring deep sensation in the internal vision, sort of like an internal scanner that goes from the top to the bottom and feels heart rate, feels how things expand and contract, your blood flushing, and all those other things. And once we achieve sort of a good understanding inside our body what's happening, then we can take that into the implementation field, into the battlefield of running or cycling or any other activity. And how can we feel our body when we run? And that is that's the next step. So and what it does when you go for a run and you feel you're going and you're feeling sort of like, it's like an interesting dialogue with your body, where your body is like, hey, I have a cramp right here. And you're like, oh, okay, so what do you need? Right? It might sound weird for some people, like talking to your own body, but that's exactly what it is. And then, and it's not that something your body needs anything. Sometimes it's just like that awareness that you have will make it go away or make it maybe something else. And you will know once you have that dialogue starting opening up. And my personal journey with that actually was when I trained for a Tokyo Marathon, and I didn't have a coach back then. And that was maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And I didn't have a coach, but I knew I want to qualify for Boston. So I trained really hard for the first time in my life. And I've started noticing that my body starts aching here and there. Like, I just feel like my body's falling apart. And then I was like, okay, I got to do something before it becomes a problem and I can't run Tokyo Marathon. So, and that's where I discovered yoga my first time in my life. I just went to a yoga class, and there suddenly my body started talking to me and like, oh, this is so like, that's the space where you should breathe into. And that's the first time I heard my body. And I'm like, oh, and that was a miracle, because through hearing my body talking to me, I was releasing a lot of tension. And it's interesting and new to me, but it makes so much sense now. But scientifically, the fascia that we have in our body has a lot of nerves endings, right? And it has a lot of sympathetic activity if it's tense. So if we do MFR, the myofascial release, like rolling our fascia, like that sympathetic activity becomes less. And what does it do? It's like we're releasing stress, basically through our somatic movement, right? And that explains why every time I go and on the yoga mat and I stretch a little bit, just 5 minutes, like I feel so much better because sympathetic activity is getting removed from the tissue, from the fascia, and is being replaced by whatever flow parasympathetic activity you can call it. And I'm not a fascia specialist, and I'm sure there are people who can scientifically explain that specific thing, but it's amazing to know that there is a sympathetic activity in your fascia that you can release once you start moving your body in that way.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
really fascinating. We're already like coming up on time and I'm just like, oh, so good. There's so many directions. I'm curious, somebody wants to start on their own after watching their video. They're like, okay, what would you give them as like maybe a little exercise or one little activity that they could do to really start to gain that relationship with their body or with their breath?
I would first tell them to maybe do an assessment, like where they are today with their CO2 tolerance. Do a BOLT score on YouTube. You can Google on YouTube. It's Patrick McKeown's BOLT score assessment, or exhale max test is another one. That's maybe a little bit, it's different. Those are two different assessments, but those are really good indicators where you are, and you can try to do that to understand where are you at. And then you can also do like your own interoceptive test by trying to measure your heart rate and see does it correspond to the actual one, and then measure how far off you are. And then if it's below 70%, then maybe there's something to work on there. And then once you've done those, I think depending on the results, right? Because if your BOLT score is very, very low, you can't say it's below 20, then I wouldn't tell you like, hey, try to go do dynamic apnea and walk and hold your breath, because you will fail. So we have to take small steps. So depending on the outcome, and you would do your routine, your protocol would be different. But in any case, I think everybody would benefit from a non-sleep deep rest protocol where you lie down and you just go internally, closing your eyes, bringing your attention to your body, with your breath, bringing attention to different parts of your body and just sense them, feel them, hear them, visualize what you see, and just spend some time in that space internally, and you will be fascinated to see the outcome of that.
Yeah.
So anybody, regardless of your assessment and scores and tests, that will be a very beneficial place for you. And then hire a breathwork facilitator and just try out for 30 minutes and see how they can guide you through just a very simple session, using your breath, bringing curiosity inside and bringing that interoceptive awareness, and see if that helps you, or if not even help you, like forget the help, like just what's there, like what does it do, like did you ever try it? It's free.
Yes, I will be sure I'll link these resources below, especially like that CO2 tolerance Patrick Bolt thing you were talking about. I'll reach out to Alla afterwards and get those, make sure I have good links for those. But I just second everything Alla's saying. And this is, if I could recommend one book that I feel like really pairs well with what you're talking about, but that is really easy to access and to start to get it into this stuff a little bit more, it's Breathe by James Nestor. And I know you've read that too, right? I'm pretty sure we've talked. I feel like that's like such a good entry point. If you're like, this is so interesting and you're wanting to dig in, I highly recommend going and checking out that book. And yes, I will also, are you offering breathwork sessions or do you mostly just work with runners?
I do. Okay. I definitely started, since my certification is completed. I'm offering breathwork sessions just for anybody. Really, it's beneficial for anyone.
So if you're looking for that, I love you called the NSDR, the non-sleep deep rest protocol. If you're looking for something like that, I highly recommend. I'll drop a link also to Alla's scheduling so you can get on her schedule to go check that out. I'm a breathwork facilitator as well. And then if there's all my YouTube, pretty much all the people on my YouTube interviews are breathwork facilitators. And so finding that person that resonates with you to really hold you in that container is so beneficial. Of course, if you're a runner, all is your choice. She's the one you need to go to. She's so good. Yeah, this has been so good, Alla. And so I have two questions before we finish off here. The first question is, what are you listening to right now? Do you have a favorite song or artist or playlist? What are you listening to?
My God, this is such a interesting question because I struggle every time I go to the gym for my like lifting session. I struggle finding something that really
Yeah.
like fires me up or I want to listen to. All my listenings usually are podcasts.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I'm
resonate.
always listening to some information, science, whatever. Like podcast
Hmm.
is like my thing. So I'm not a big music person, but recently I would just like um what's that song? It's from the Big Little Lies TV show. It's called
Mm.
Little Heart. That song is just so good. I play it on repeat. And then
Yeah.
I create a radio based on that genre on Apple Music, and I just listen to all the songs there. I'm very boring with music, so
Not boring. Not boring at all. I'm going to link that below. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And then the second question is either what are you currently reading or what book would you just love to recommend to people that they go pick up?
currently I am actually rereading Joe Dispenza's
Mm.
Break the Habit to Be Yourself. I think that's his book from 2013 or 12, something like that.
Yeah.
That book is so good. It's just fascinating
Oh,
how the entire evolution of like how we actually can influence our own destiny and our future. Um,
yeah.
Explained with quantum physics and all other science. So that book is amazing. I what book I would recommend? The New Earth. It's pretty. I love
Mm.
that book too by Eckhart
Yeah.
Tolle. He's amazing. I can reread that one every I don't know every 6 months and find something new every single time.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful book.
Oh, thank you for sharing this. You won't believe this, but Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is literally on my nightstand right now. That's
Nice.
the new one that I'm cracking open. So when you said that, like that's no coincidences.
Mhm.
It's been so good so far, and I just I
Yeah.
know it's gonna be amazing. Also, second, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, so good. I'll be sure to drop those links below as well. Thank you, Alla, for sharing your wisdom today. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your spirit, and I love you and I adore you.
No, thank you so much, Dakota. Thank you so much. I hope this will be helpful for people out there.
Yeah.
Um, just one message: um, do something, do something fun every day, and something that scares you
Mm.
every day. Just today,
Mm.
what was that? Like a few days ago, I was listening to Huberman's podcast with
Yeah.
Goggins. Right? Did you listen to that one?
I haven't yet. Is
No,
it
and
good?
yeah. Oh my God, it's just so funny. And he was talking about anterior mid-cingulate complex. It's like
Okay.
at some part of your brain that is large in people who are athletes and people who
Mm.
live long. And it's very small in people who are obese and addicts and other people.
Yeah.
And it's connected to the willpower. So basically, doing
Mm.
every day something that you hate or you're scared of or you don't like,
Mm.
and increase it. And if one day that thing that you've done, you were scared of, becomes easy and you start liking it, it will shrink back. So you got to do something every day that scares you.
Ooh. Oh,
So
that's a
fascinating.
challenge. That's a big challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do some pondering on that. What are you gonna do today that you don't like doing?
Um, Power snatches.
Yes. Yeah.
I love
I hate
lifting and I
those.
love all the moves. Basically, I love cleans, I love deadlifts and squats, everything. But the snatches, they are so hard. I hate them so
Mm,
much. And I hate them so much. I'm like, every time I do them, I feel like I need to hire someone to make them love them. But now listening to Huberman, I'm thinking maybe I shouldn't like love them. Maybe I should hate them.
yeah,
I should
you're
keep
like
doing them. So my
keep
my
hating them.
anterior mid-cingulate complex keeps growing. So
Yes. Oh, that's so good. That, yeah, mine at the gym recently, I've been getting up to 10 pull-ups, those last few being assisted, but that like
right.
that 11th pull-up, it like there's this like fear response. Like I just felt it in my gut. It's like I hate the 11th pull-up. The 1 through 10 are okay, but I go to do that 11th one and it's like terror. It's like I hate this. It's not fun. It's hurting. I'm gonna fall and die. Like it's like a crazy extreme. It's like a switch goes off. And so that's, yeah, I'm really intrigued to do it again with this in mind and see how that feels.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm, so
Awesome.
good. Amazing. Oh, thank you so much, Alla.
Thank you.